I'll start us off in a second here. Let's wait for this thing to get going. I always mistime this, but okay, I think I got it this time. Okay, we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is Project SIP's first episode of State of the Election 2020. This is an idea that we came up with a couple weeks ago that we wanted to have a way for us all to be able to go over the election together. And I got a few panelists here that are going to help me do that tonight. We got Tyler, Robert, Kylan, and Vlad. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to start to share my screen here, and we'll jump right into it. So we're using 270 to win. This is the electoral map we decided to use tonight. It's an interactive electoral map, which enables you to designate everything as either safe, likely, leans, or a toss-up. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So we're going to start off going west to east. And we're going to label the ones that we think are pretty safe one way or the other. And by pretty safe, I mean the other candidate has no chance of winning them, whether it be Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So we're going to start off California. Pretty safely blue, I would say. And just to add a little fact, it's been safely blue, actually, since Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is the last time that this state has gone red the other way. So anyone else have any other interesting factoids about California?
Yeah, California has the biggest conservative base out of any other state. Used to be where Cal Palace is actually where they used to hold the Republican convention back in like the 50s and stuff like that. So California used to be the most reliable Republican state for about 50 years until the end of Reaganomics and Ronald Reagan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Moving right on, we got Oregon next. Oregon also I would characterize as safely blue. I don't think, does anyone know when the last time Oregon has actually gone red? I think it's been quite a while.
Yeah, it used to be fairly consistently red up until Ronald Reagan. The first time it went blue was for Dukakis in 1988, and it's been blue ever since.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan was the last Republican to carry the state of Oregon.
Interesting. A lot of Reagan. Okay. It kind of makes you wonder, and I was saying this before the podcast started, if Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for president, since he was the governor of California and so was Ronald Reagan, would that be the way that you flip some of these blue states red? But
if he could run.
Yeah, exactly. So in any case, moving right along, we're going to move through these like safe states pretty quickly here. So next one I would characterize as safe Democrat, Washington. Washington also has not gone red for a very long time. I think, is it Reagan again?
It is Reagan again in 1984.
1984.
Go figure,
California
man.
did actually vote for the first Bush in 1988, and that was the last time they were.
Okay. Interesting. Very cool. So now we're going to move to our first safe Republican, and that's Idaho. Oops, I'm sorry. Oregon needs to go back. Idaho is, in my view, very safely red. I don't think it's gone blue in at least 20 to 30 years, and I don't see that changing for this election. So next state I'd like to characterize as safe Republican, Montana and Wyoming. Both states also not gone blue for a very long time. Don't see that changing this election.
As a caveat, there is a very competitive Senate election going on in Montana. We have the popular Democratic governor, Steve Bullock, against Steve Daines, the incumbent. And so
he's a former senator too, right?
He's a former governor.
Former governor.
That's
right.
See,
I'm sorry.
The thing about Montana is that every election is statewide because of the way that the whatchamacallit goes. Because they don't have
districts.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was looking for. They only have one representative and then the two senators. So yeah, it's very easy. It's very hard, I should say, to win a statewide contest there as a Democrat, and Steve Bullock has done that.
Gotcha.
I think Daines is starting to pull ahead in those polls as well.
Okay.
on the Montana there. I have it as a tilt red on for my other thing, but
I have it as a complete. Danes is ahead, but it's a complete toss up right now.
yeah. I mean, it's in my toss up section, but I highlighted it as a tilt red.
It's more leaning Danes, but it's competitive. It could still go any way depending on the turnout models.
For sure, especially Montana, like you guys said, it's a very Republican state, so
And
pretty close.
just looking at their Senate history, I mean, they've had in the last 14 Senate races, 9 have been won by Democrats. So I think that's also something interesting to look at in the state, considering the fact that all elections are statewide. So it's heavy red, but you know,
and it's also it's worth noting that the last election back in 2016, Donald Trump won that state by over 20 points. So, you know, again,
right,
characterized as very safely red. Same with Montana. Donald Trump won with 68% of the vote to Hillary Clinton's 21. So, you know, states that we don't see, you know, changing anytime soon. So I want to make sure we're going through the rest of the map pretty quickly here, because I want to get to the interesting ones, the swing states. So North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. I don't think we have any disagreement there. Those are all going to be red come the November 3rd. So
Louisiana and Arkansas as well.
I'm sorry?
Louisiana and Arkansas.
Oh, get into those. Yeah, get into those, guys. I'm going to do 5 at a time, I would say. So let's do Louisiana next, Arkansas, Missouri. I'm going to leave Iowa up for now because I think that one's a little bit closer than people give it credit for, but you know, we'll get to that in a second. And then Mississippi, Alabama, both safely red. Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and South Carolina. I think we can all agree, unless I missed anything, I think those are going to be the safe ones.
I would say Missouri's not safe, personally.
Missouri, okay.
I would say it's not.
So let's leave that one open, then we can talk about that later.
There's also a very interesting Senate race going on in South Carolina. The incumbent, Lindsey Graham, against Jamie Harrison, former Democratic sheriff of the South Carolina Democratic Party. A lot of polls have that race close. The polls have gone up and down, but it's definitely been competitive. He's raised the most money out of any senator. He's raised some of the most money by any senator. So, you know, he's making a competitive go at it. So we should definitely keep an eye on that race.
Quinnipiac says that it's a tie. It's a virtual tie.
Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac, sorry.
Yep.
Reading, I'm not very good at reading like some of our politicians are.
I think what we should also note is some of those polls have gone from 0 to 23% though. So
yeah, very true.
Absolutely.
So while we're here, let's fill out the rest of the map as safe states. So for safe Democratic states, I have Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, District of Columbia, and New York.
DC.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was kidding.
District of whatever, dude.
What?
Vermont, I also have safe. I'm going to keep North New Hampshire open for now, though, and we'll get to that later. So
live free or die.
What's that?
Live free or die. The best damn motto in the union.
Right on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's start with the swing states. I want to go first and foremost with, sorry, I'm just sharing the video real quick. I can't multitask, clearly. So let's start with Nevada. How do we see Nevada right now, guys?
I would say leans Democratic, in my opinion.
I would say likely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the same fence with it, saying likely. I mean, I think it's just kind of a toss away for Trump. I don't think Trump has really any chance of winning Nevada. I wouldn't say
he doesn't have a chance. I mean, he only lost it by 1.5 in 2016, but I would say that since a lot of people from California have, through the pandemic, moved out to Tahoe, Reno, all those areas, it's not going to. I would usually say it would lean Democratic, but right now I'm just going to say it's likely because of that.
Right.
As well, turnout is going to be key. If we're going to have a turnout model that we're looking at, you know, 2018 midterms and above, things can be looking good for the Democratic Party. If we're looking at 2016 turnout, you could pretty much, call Donald Trump a two-term president. And so, we'll have to keep an eye on a lot of the turnout models. And I think early voting numbers will be a key indicator.
Yep.
I think
I agree.
also, I think Nevada, has more registered Democrats, and Nevada did just move to, I think, all mail-in ballots. If I'm not wrong,
I believe you're right.
So
It's
I
an
think
optional absentee.
yeah. So I think that also helps.
And one thing I will mention, one of the models that I like to use, and I know a lot of people like to use, is the 538 election model, which just came out about a month ago. On this one, it looks like Biden's lead has stayed pretty consistent. It peaked all the way up at an 81% chance of victory. It's now down to 79, but it realistically hasn't moved much. In my opinion, I see this as a likely state for the Democrats, and I think we'll characterize it as such. So,
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to characterize Alaska as a safe red.
No, do it the other way around.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Don't forget Utah.
I actually left Utah open. I think that given the support for Evan McMullen back in 2016, I think that there's growing dissent in Utah for the Trump movement as a whole, and that's why I left it open. I still think it'll be likely red, but I wouldn't characterize it as some of these other like safe red states. So, but yeah, I mean, you can let me know if you guys agree on that.
I disagree.
Okay, let's hear it. Why do you disagree?
Oh, well, we're already going. I thought we can go back to it. Oh, I still think that a lot of the religious base there in Utah will come out and support the president. I mean, I understand that Romney's out there and he does have a small base of people that aren't necessarily for the president. I agree that it's a likely Republican. I just wanted to kind of come in here and throw some hate, but I don't think it's a for sure safe, but I think it's most likely. I mean, it's like a 90% chance it's going to go for Donald Trump.
I'm actually going to agree with Robert on this one. I think it's likely Trump. Just looking at their voting history, I mean, they've had Republican governors since 1984. They haven't reelected a Republican to the Senate. I mean, I'm going back to 1982, and everything's been red. They haven't voted for a Democratic president since 1964, since Johnson. So, taking all that into consideration, plus the religious base, I don't think that I really don't think that Mitt Romney and his dissent from Donald Trump is going to have enough pull to really do anything in that state. Maybe it'll become a little bit lighter on the red, but it's still going to go red, in my opinion.
Okay, I would say I agree with everybody here, but this is, I think, what Alex is saying. Trump won Utah by 18 points in 2016. That sounds like a lot, except for in 2012, Romney, obviously, because he's from the state, won it by 48 points, actually. So, so usually Utah is solidly red, obviously, because of who Trump is. It's less than solid, but it's not going anywhere. It's totally.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm
point,
going to characterize this one as likely for now, and we'll get that and move on. So, next I want to talk about Colorado. How are we feeling about Colorado?
I think Colorado is going to be a likely blue state. I also think Cory Gardner is dead man walking. He's been one of the most endangered incumbents in this Senate cycle, and that hasn't changed. So I definitely think he's dead man walking against the former Governor John Hickenlooper. And I also think Colorado is pretty safely, I would say pretty likely to land in the Democratic states. Again, it's been trending blue these last couple of election cycles, and I don't see that changing.
I was going to say, I wouldn't exactly say faithfully, because Hillary Clinton won the state by 5 measly points back in 2016.
But so didn't Obama won it by 5 points in 2012.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep.
So it's stayed consistent at least, but it's still a close state, but it's gonna lean. I would say lean personally.
Colorado is in the early stages of what Virginia is now.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you have noticed that for me. I think Democrats will win Colorado. They're currently winning. I mean, like other people had said, Hickenlooper is very popular. You know, in some polls he leads by over 10%. That's probably why he ran for president, was to help give him a little boost in popularity. But I think Colorado goes to the Democrats.
Yep. I think we can all agree on that one. And so does 538. 538 has Biden at an 86% chance of winning that state. So I think pretty safely in the Democrats' corner there. So we've done mostly the likely ones now. Let's go to the first like true swing state, which is Arizona. How are we all feeling about Arizona right now?
I guess I'll take it first.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I think as of right now, that is unfortunately it's going to be a lean Democrat. I know Martha McSally is very unpopular in that state, but Republicans have been coming out saying that a lot of the internal polling is actually a lot closer than what some of the national polling has been saying. With McSally and Republicans having a popularity about tied with Democrats. But as of right now, there's no way that I could call it in favor of Republicans. So I would say that this currently, as of right now, even though Donald Trump won it in 2016, that as of right now, it looks like a lean Democrat.
And I'm unclear about this. What was Martha McSally appointed, or did she actually win a special election?
She was appointed.
First, she lost to Kristen Sinema, so she was a loser. And then when John McCain passed away, Doug Ducey appointed her. So that was her consolation prize.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm actually gonna, I can't believe I'm doing this again, but I'm gonna agree with Robert.
Nothing wrong with agreeing with me.
I know, right? That's actually true. You're absolutely right, Robert. I apologize. No, if you look at the historical numbers, I mean, you know, since the 2000 election, Arizona has been very solidly Republican up until you reached Donald Trump. I mean, you're talking margins of victory of 7 points, 10 points, 8 points, like nothing below 7 points was a margin of victory in that state until you hit Donald Trump, and his margin of victory was 3. It was 3.6 actually, which is about half of what it was trending towards. And they've had a lot of population growth lately. I mean, they're actually poised as of this election cycle to pick up another Electoral College seat. So, you also have to look at the demographics of where those people are coming from. And I think a lot of those people are coming from California. Again, you're getting some of that flight from this state across the country due to cost of living. And I think Arizona is going to be flipped in this election, and we'll see where it goes from here.
It's interesting to just look at the trend for Arizona. It's been kind of all over the place. Biden's lead at one point was a 62% chance of victory. It's down to 61, but it got as close as a 52% chance of victory. And I believe that was like the post-convention bump for Trump. But then it ballooned right back up to 61 again. So right now, I mean, I would say very much still a toss-up state. But right now, I would say I would put it in the very pale blue leans Democrat at this point. So
I would say that it's not even the demographics that have changed for Arizona, except for the fact that they've been trending each election cycle toward the purple, and it's definitely become a swing state with our current president in his situations right now. Because I think Vlad said it earlier. It's only 3.5% last time, but it was 9% and 10% in the previous 2 elections when Obama was running.
Yep.
So it's definitely, I would say, it's leaning blue.
Yep. Yeah, it was only I don't know if someone might have said this already, but it was only a 4% margin of victory in 2016. So
3.6.
3.6.
You did say that. Okay, my bad.
The latest Fox News poll, out of Arizona actually has Biden up by 49 to 40. So that's a Fox News poll that was just most recently as of the 1st of September. So within the last week. And so that's something significant to consider.
It's significant, but you can't look at just one poll.
Yeah.
You have to look at the aggregate.
It's also a Fox News poll, unfortunately, which they're not known for you
Being
know,
good
great
pollsters.
polling
So
practices.
actually, 538 has them rated one of the best polls. They've got them at
Wow.
like A plus, or
Interesting.
not. It's an A rating, I think, is what they've got them at right now.
They are actually known for how good they are for their polling. That's the reason why the president doesn't like some of the polls that they put out. But it's just, again, like I said, even though one poll says it, no matter how good it is, you have to look at a bunch of different polls because they're polling different people.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
Agreed.
So-
One last thing I would like to add, though, is that
Mhm.
Trump's current approval rating about amongst the Hispanic community is at 37%, and Arizona does have a pretty big Hispanic community, so that is something that we need to look out for.
I would say
Absolutely, that's
I
a
would
good point.
say if Trump gets 40% of the Hispanic vote in Arizona, he will win the state.
Yeah, I think that's about right. So I think it's fair at this point to characterize Arizona as a tilt Democrat, which is the lightest possible blue you can do. So I think that's what we
We'll
should
go
do.
that
I think
way.
we can all agree on that one. So
Baby blue.
um, and just FYI, 538 has Biden winning it at a 61% clip. So we'll see, but a lot can change between now and then.
A lot can
Yes.
change.
A lot can
Yes.
change. Let's move on to New Mexico. How are we feeling about New Mexico?
That is likely Democratic.
I would agree with that.
Yep, no argument for me. I think
Yeah,
Democrats
polling
will
is
be
very
winning that.
consistently strong for Biden, so yeah, likely makes sense.
Yep. It's Biden's lead has not dipped below 90% in multiple weeks. So I'm going to characterize it as likely too.
Yeah,
So,
And when you mean by lead, you're talking about chances of winning.
chances of winning. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
Clinton carried it by 8 points. I doubt Biden's going to mess that up.
And
Hillary Clinton carried it by 8 points. So
and Obama carried it by 10 points. So
pretty reasonably safe. Okay. That was quick. Let's move on to the interesting one. The one that everyone was saying would actually be in play this year. Do we think Texas is in play in 2020?
I didn't say it was in play. I said it's going to be very
No.
interesting.
I'm not saying you said that necessarily, but a lot of the media has been like hyping Texas up as a state that could potentially flip this year for Biden. Like,
The media always needs some good stories. So me personally, I think this one is still going to be like either leans or likely Republican. I do think, MJ Hagar is going to give John Cornyn a run for his money. Polling, there's not a whole lot of polling in that race out right now. But I think, depending on the turnout models, I think, MJ Hagar can have a chance. I think that, Biden can make a strong showing in Texas. I believe Trump won Texas by 8 points in 2016, which is actually lower on the scale. And I think, Biden has a chance to maybe cut into that and make that maybe a 3 or 4 point win for Trump. I do think, I believe Robert brought up a point like 10, 20 years from now, Texas may be a purple/light blue state. And I think that's possible, especially if people keep fleeing California. So, it's definitely something in the future to keep an eye on. But I think, for me, I think it's more lean Trump this cycle.
Yeah, I would agree. And for those, I just want to quick segue here. For those of you who are pointing out Nebraska and Maine, we do know that there's districting involved in that one. We'll get to that later. But I just wanted to make that point real quick because Nebraska is on my map, at least right now, characterized as red. But we'll get to the districting later on in the broadcast. So stay tuned for that.
Once we work our way to the East Coast.
What's that?
I said, once we work our way to the East Coast, we're getting there.
Exactly. We'll get to those very last. So,
Just about Texas, just real quick. I know in the 2016 election cycle, there was actually a lot of the same media hype that happened about Texas being potentially in play, and it, it went red. But like Kylan said, Obama lost Texas in 2012 by almost 16 points. Trump won it by 9. So and also seeing the inroads that Democrats have made in Texas with Beto O'Rourke's Senate run. I don't know. I'd be shocked to see it flip now, but give it 3 election cycles, it's probably purple.
That's kind of where my head's at too. You've got these, cities that are becoming more and more liberal, like San Antonio, Austin, even Dallas to a certain extent, are all seeing a little bit of a movement of left-leaning people living there. So
I would say Houston more than Dallas, but yeah, for sure.
It's the big cities mainly, because in those major metropolitan areas is typically where you see more liberal support. So
yeah, except for the suburbs of Dallas are still solidly red, and that's kind of what's keeping the state red, more in my opinion. And the same thing with the suburbs of Houston, but Houston itself is turning more blue. Austin and San Antonio, as you mentioned, you have El Paso that is solidly blue. You have basically the border towns like is it St. Helen or McAllen? Corpus, Brownsville, all those little cities down there, they are definitely turning solidly blue. So Texas is not there yet, but it's definitely heading in that direction for sure.
Yeah.
If I could throw in
one last, go ahead, Robert.
The Robert go, yeah, for sure.
The things I was just going to say is, again, it does have a big Hispanic community. We do know it also does have they're big on their Second Amendment rights. Like I said, and what Kylan had said is it won't what I assume is it won't turn purple for about like another 20 to 30 years. But the same thing also is that we heard these same talks about it turning purple with Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke lost pretty bad to Ted Cruz. We have John Cornyn now going against MJ Hagar, but Cornyn is leading in every single poll and has also outraised Hagar by 3 times the amount. So I think Republicans are pretty safe in this election as of right now for winning Texas. I think that's a likely Republican.
Small correction on that one. Beto O'Rourke lost to Ted Cruz by about 3.8%.
It was very close, and it pulled a lot of money.
That was going to be my next question, actually, is one of you had mentioned that Beto made Texas very close. I watched the election that night. I don't remember it being that close, but maybe I'm just remembering it wrong.
It was 3.8%.
It was okay.
And
is that really that close though? In Texas,
that's close for Texas.
In Texas, I think that's close
for Texas. Yeah, but I mean, it's not close Texas, of actually It's not close to flipping.
No, it's not close to flipping, but it's significantly closer than Ted Cruz should have had that race.
Yeah,
I can agree with that.
Yeah, and one last thing for Texas too, down ballot, Democrats have a chance. When we talk about statewide, not so much, but when we talk about down ballot, Democrats do have a chance to realistically take over the state house, and so that will be big, for Democrats to have a hand in redistricting when the census comes out. So these type of down ballot effects are things to definitely keep an eye on when we're talking about Texas, not just from a statewide level.
Again, I'm going to bring this up just in case none of you brought it up already. Donald Trump did win that state, a state that they thought could flip blue back in 2016 by 9 points, it looks like. And this year he's favored 72% to win the state this time around. So I see Texas as a likely red state. I'm assuming you guys agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's that grin for, Tyler?
It makes it twice that I threw out some numbers and then you threw them out later.
and me and Vlad are like with the stats, and so then it's like right afterwards you're just coming out with it like literally 10 seconds later.
That's what so I'm paying attention to all sorts of things in the background. So if I'm missing it, I apologize, but
no hard feelings.
We love you. It's okay.
But you know what? I appreciate how prepared you guys are tonight. Let me just say that. Really good stuff.
I would assume that Tyler and Vlad work for Ballotopedia with how much knowledge they know on the election.
I just really, really love numbers.
Nice.
Same.
Nice.
So let's move on to Missouri. How are we feeling about Missouri?
Leans to likely Republican.
Yeah, I think that's a likely Republican. I don't really have much.
It's a likely, but I mean, Obama did make that very close in his elections. So with the good, I guess you could say, from Biden, it could still be very close.
I don't know though, Tyler, because I feel like Obama made it incredibly close in '08. He lost. It was 49.4 to 49.3. This is about as close as you can get.
Yep.
But then in 2012, he lost it by almost 10 points.
Yep.
So, and then Hillary lost it by close to
double
20.
digits. Oh, it's yeah.
So I think all the inroads that were made, right, and
So, yeah.
all those inroads that were made by Obama and to a certain degree actually by Al Gore, because he lost that state by 3 points in 2000. I think all that's been wiped out. So I would actually characterize Missouri as likely Republican.
Yeah, I'm on actually on safe. That's what I have on my own thing.
I would probably actually say safe, but I'm just gonna go with likely.
So
I say lean.
Just so we get to the point where we're like all on the same page with these definitions and stuff like that. The only states that I really characterize as safe are the ones that like the candidate has no chance of winning. At this point, Trump is favored to win Missouri by about 90%, which is to say that Biden has a 10% chance. So I would characterize it personally as likely. But
I mean, Real Clear Politics still has it as a toss-up. And
what?
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
Missouri?
Yeah, Missouri. Even though the polling says otherwise, that's why I'm saying I would say it would lean. Instead of being a toss-up, it's still going to be closer than we think.
Everyone that says likely, raise your hand.
Well, I'm safe, so I mean, I might as well go likely then.
So I'm the only one.
You're outnumbered, Tyler.
I'm outnumbered. It's okay. I'm okay with that.
Screw RCP.
In this purely democratic election, you have lost.
That was so democratic there.
I mean, it's you know what? You have to have Alex in this. If there was a tie, that would be the only thing. You have to be the tiebreaker, Alex.
Yeah,
but there wasn't any tie to break this time.
Not
You're
this
just
time.
outnumbered.
Not this time, but in the future, because there's definitely going to be something I think that we're going to need a tiebreaker on.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
You're kind of like the speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will gladly wear that hat. So, so the next state we're going to, Trump won this state by 10% in 2016, and it's looking like it could be a lot closer this time around, and that's Iowa. Trump currently has a 68% chance to win Iowa, according to 538 polling. What are your guys' thoughts?
The thing I have to say about Iowa is I know Biden did just launch a digital campaign for Iowa. He hasn't really been doing much actual campaigning there. I think Biden is not really going to spend too much time trying to campaign here. I think that's kind of a lost cause. I think his digital campaign is kind of more to increase his popular vote. I think Iowa is most likely a likely Republican state, but that's just my opinion on it personally.
Tyler, what do you think?
So I would say because of the Obama coalition that he built, because he won in 2008 by 9 points. He won in 2012 by almost 17 points. It's going to be a lot closer than you might think. I mean, yes, Trump won it by 9.5 points in 16. It's still there. This is one where the goodwill could be actually favored for the Democrats. I would say it would lean Republican.
Quick correction, Tyler. In 2012, Obama won it by 6.
Not by 6.
But I I do think it leans Republican, but I think it is in play.
The great news about Iowa is that there's a very, very competitive Senate race between Joni Ernst and Teresa Greenfield. As of right now, this race is rated a toss-up. With as far as the Real Clear Politics average, has Greenfield up by 0.3%, which is basically a statistical tie. But that's something to keep an eye on. Again, although on a presidential level, Iowa may not be in play, but we're talking about competitive Senate levels, especially depending on turnout models. There's a very good chance that this could be a bonus flip seat for the Democrats.
Yep. And based on the aggregate data that we've been looking at, Iowa actually hasn't moved much. It's stayed. I mean, it's been a very close race for a lot of months now, but it's generally stayed firmly in Trump's lead by about a 10% margin. Or a 10% margin of victory, according to 538. So I had to correct myself there. So all of that being said, I would actually characterize Iowa as tilt red. And I want to know if you guys agree.
I don't personally. I think it's a likely red, but that's why we're here to debate it out.
I definitely would still say lean.
I would say lean.
I would go lean as well.
Lean. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's close enough to tilt, but I don't think it's so far away to say likely.
Oh, okay, so, sorry. I'm looking at the colors here. I guess I can go with lean. I guess it's not likely. I guess likely I would consider something.
Yeah, I would say likely is like probably 70 to 80%
okay.
chance of victory or above, I would say. Yeah.
You guys got me. I'm on you guys. Okay. Okay.
So leans it is then. Okay, moving on. We're going over to the Rust Belt now. Let's start with Minnesota. This is, of course, the very famous area of the country that Hillary Clinton in 2016 considered the blue wall, that she obviously, now we know, did not have back in 2016. Robert's laughing at that.
About that. Worked out real well.
Hillary Clinton to be called she who shall not be named.
Yeah. So actually, Minnesota was the only state in the Rust Belt that Hillary Clinton won, and she won it by roughly 2 percentage points.
1.5.
1.5. Yeah, you're right. How do we feel that it's going to go this time?
I think it'll go likely Democrat. If Hillary was able to carry it by, a 1.5, and we all know how enthusiastic Democratic voters were about her. I think people are more enthusiastic about Biden. So I think it'll go likely.
I think Trump's main campaigning is he's campaigning, doing a lot of his campaigning here in the Rust Belt. I think it's a lot of those blue collar workers that he's going to be working around again in 2020. I am going to agree with you guys that as of right now, if the election were to be held today, that Trump would probably lose Minnesota. But I think a lot of his campaigning is going to be done around the Rust Belt, all around that area. And I think only from here, his numbers will keep on going up as he keeps punching at it with the blue collar workers there.
And it's interesting, looking at how the race has changed. Only a couple weeks ago, actually, Biden's lead did tighten in Minnesota a little bit, but it did bump back up in recent days. And now he's at a 77% chance of victory in Minnesota, which would lead me to probably consider it more likely than not. But I'm willing to concede that it's a lean if you guys are all kind of like a little bit more bullish about it.
I would say it's likely.
I'm a little more cautious. I'm going to stick with likely.
Well, no, I certainly wouldn't characterize it as safe. But if you're not ready to consider it likely, we could go lean, which is slightly paler blue. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would say darker blue. It's darker blue to me.
So likely?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the election were held today, I don't think there's a possibility that he could win. But
no,
the polls are starting to go the other way. But I think it's still likely.
Okay. Now, as far as the Rust Belt, actually, you know what? I forgot to characterize Illinois. Illinois, we can all say, is safe, I would say.
Chicago's not going to let that go Republican.
Yeah, not a chance. Let's move on to Wisconsin, which I actually think is going to be the most competitive out of the Rust Belt states. I still personally think I would characterize it as a tilt Democrat, but I'm curious what you guys think.
I think I'm the dissenting voice here that thinks that if the election were held today, I believe that Trump would win Wisconsin under the same kind of thing that I was talking about before. A lot of blue collar workers there in Wisconsin. Again, he's doing a lot of his campaigning up in these areas, and he did win that in 2016. And I don't see too much of a change that he would lose that coalition of voters there in Wisconsin. So I think he would actually win. My argument is that it's a tilt Republican at this point.
So for me, these states, especially that we're going to get into, have to do a turnout. whatever the turnout is will make the biggest difference. Obviously in 2016 we had a little bit higher of a turnout than we have had in past elections, but in states such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, the turnout was lower by a significant margin.
Mhm.
Trump only won the state by 0.75%.
Mm-hmm.
So if the turnout is there like it should be, this is leaning Democratic.
I guess, and a lot of the question is, because even as a Democrat, I can admit, like, there isn't a ton of enthusiasm for Biden necessarily, but the enthusiasm is to evict Trump from the office. So does that enthusiasm to evict Trump, like, turn into voter turnout? I mean, that's really what we got to look at.
I don't think it really did in 2016. I mean, if we look at it like that.
In 16, no, but in 18 and 19 with those elections in the primary this year, it definitely, the turnout was there. There was historic turnout numbers for a primary election in the middle of a pandemic when people were confused about if they should vote now, if they should vote by mail, when is the primary. They still had historic turnout. That's why I would say that it would lean Democratic because of that.
But so did Republicans in a lot of these states. I'm pretty sure.
I know. I'm not saying that. That's
like
one. I'm agreeing with you on that. The turnout will be high no matter where you are.
Okay.
It's just usually when there is high turnout, the Democrats usually benefit from
perform better
because they have more registered voters as Democrats. So
exactly.
Likely.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Oh. I'm gonna go with Tyler on this one and say this is going to be a lean Democrat. Again, all across the country in a lot of battleground states, turnout has been really juiced this election cycle, and so I think that's going to be a very big indicator. That it's going to be high turnout. On November 3rd. Robert makes some great points when he talks about Trump's coalition, with blue collar workers, but I also think Joe Biden also has a unique characteristics that identify with blue collar workers. Let's not forget that Hillary Clinton was the most disliked presidential candidate in modern history, aside from Donald Trump.
Mhm.
And so, I think a lot of that played in her own demise. The fact that she ran one of the most inept campaigns in modern Democratic history, as well as being one of the most disliked candidates in modern Democratic history. And so I think Biden has been running a pretty good campaign, in my opinion. I think that a lot of these, I think just like there's, for lack of a better word, a silent majority, quote unquote, of Trump supporters that maybe be underrepresented in the polling. I also think that there's a silent majority of underrepresented Biden voters and, Trump voters who do plan on turning back to Biden. Some who've said so outwardly, but there's a lot who, for fear of reprisal, for fear of disillusionment, for being banished from their friends and family circles, I think there's a lot of soft Republicans, with that blue collar message that will shift back to Biden. And, I think that remains to be seen, but I'm going to be very interested in what the turnout looks like and what the exit polling looks like.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. And to the point of polling, Fox News, which is actually an A-rated pollster by 538, which is amazing.
Saying that again.
Yeah.
You have to say that every time you mention Fox News.
Fox News has great polling. They're great on polling.
The best polling. They currently have Biden at an 8-point lead in Wisconsin right now, which I think pretty significant coming from a very conservative outlet like Fox News. YouGov, which is a B-rated pollster, also has Biden leading by 6 points currently. So, and then Rasmussen, which is actually the poll that Trump likes to reference a lot when he goes to his approval ratings, they have Biden with an 8-point lead in that state. So, personally, I would characterize Wisconsin as a lean Democrat, maybe tilt, depending on what you guys say.
I say
I'd be
lean.
comfortable with lean or tilt.
Lean or tilt. Okay.
I would say lean.
You say lean. All right, Robert, you're outnumbered this time, bud. Sorry. So we'll call Wisconsin a lean. So
you bring up your points are very valid, Robert. So
why wouldn't
They
at
are
least
excellent.
be a tilt though? I mean, we're not going to take into effect 2016.
Oh,
Well,
if we take into account 2016, he won by
A
Tyler,
small.
I'll let you say it. Go ahead, Tyler.
I was going to say it was 3/4 of a point.
Exactly.
So, and the turnout was down in Wisconsin. And so it's only going to take 3,000 extra people voting, essentially. And that state will be flipped the other way. and we're going to have more than that, I would say.
Yep. Okay, so you know what? I'll put it as a tilt. Actually, I'll give you that one, Robert.
Just feeling bad for me, dude.
You're right, man. I do.
Pity.
That was a pity give.
You're only going to get one, so you got to take it.
Okay, I'll take Wisconsin.
That's your one pity tilt.
Nice.
That was a
Okay.
deep rabbit hole.
Good stuff. Moving on to Michigan. Now this is also a state that Trump carried in 2016 by 0.3 percentage points.
1,500
from what I'm seeing.
1,500 votes. Can you believe that?
African American turnout was down by 20% plus.
Because they thought that Hillary was going to win the election, they didn't go out.
Now this
But
one,
they also couldn't stand her as well.
Yep.
I would characterize this one as much safer Democrat than Wisconsin, personally. And I want to know.
I don't agree. Looking at the polls, the polls are even closer for Michigan than they are for Wisconsin. I think we also have to take into effect that I think it's Trump's approval rating or like, well, let me see, I got it right here. 90% of Black voters support Trump. And so I know these Rust Belt states do have a lot of Black voters that in these areas of like Detroit. And I think that Trump does have an ability to garner more of the minority vote in these states with things that he's been doing, like opportunity zones and reinvesting into historic Black colleges and stuff like that. And when we take into effect the count of most recent polls actually being closer than even Wisconsin, I would at least argue that this is a tilt Democrat. I don't think Trump is going to win this one as of right now, but because when the last poll I seen was about like 4 percentage points or something like that, 4 or 5 percentage points.
Given that we gave Wisconsin a tilt designation, I almost feel like we have to give Michigan a lean at least.
I would
say change it the other way. Give Wisconsin the lean.
No.
I would say that Michigan is definitely likely to the Democrats. Just some of there's only one real poll in the last month that has Trump anywhere close or in the lead. Every other poll has been more than 6 points. This is Biden's state for sure.
And one quick thing I want to bring up, just because it was in the comments, Amanda, who's one of our very, very popular and consistent panelists, said, I think Michigan is leaning blue. Governor Whitmer is very popular there, given her handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think we can all agree with that. So wanted to shout that out real quick.
I'm actually going to be one of the dissenting voices. I know the polling seems very stable in Michigan, but I trust the Michigan Whisperer, and the Michigan Whisperer is Michael Moore, and Michael Moore has been sounding the alarm that he sees parallels in Michigan that pollsters aren't seeing, that professionals aren't seeing, and he's saying that there's a lot of enthusiasm for Trump that's not being recognized. And so again, Michael Moore was one of the first people that said in 2016 that he saw what was happening in the Rust Belt, and he called that Trump was going to win. And so I take Michael Moore's word when he says that you need to be playing ball in Michigan and campaigning and, fighting tooth and nail. And so for me, I see it as a tilt, but I don't feel comfortable going anything more than a tilt Democratic because, again, I trust Michael Moore, the Michigan Whisperer.
I think one other thing I'd like to add too is I'm pretty sure the only polling that really got these Rust Belts right was actually Trafalgar. A lot of these places that were leaning that Hillary Clinton was going to win these in 2016, and it was the Trafalgar group that actually predicted that Trump was going to win. I'm not going to say that because Trafalgar is currently saying Trump's winning, because I think it's still likely lean Dem. But we also have to take into account that Trafalgar was one of the only few right polling places to say that Trump was going to win.
Trafalgar last month said that Trump was winning by 2 points.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that at all right now. Trafalgar was one of the few that did get it right, but a majority of the polling was within the margin of error. And as 538 has told us and shown us, that the margin of error is a big deal, that 3 to 4 points. So if Biden had only a 3 or 4 point lead right now, I would say it would be a tilt. He's been consistently pulling a little bit higher than that. So that's why I would say it would be more than a tilt for me.
RCP has them at 3.3% spread. What when you're going off the 538 though? Never mind.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm going off of a couple different sites and just looking at those things. But yeah, if RCP says it's 3.4, that is a reason why you would put it more as a tilt.
And from my experience, and tell me if you guys have had the same experience, I tend to think that RCP leans a little bit more to the right.
Well, I think they're an average.
They're an average.
They take average from all the polls.
Yeah, they're an average.
Their model just takes more ambiguity though. And that's one of the reasons why you have places like Missouri as a toss-up.
The RCP, they'll take in every poll. They don't just take in the reputable polls. They include
so does 538 though.
No, but then 538 does adjust their ratings like they do with Rasmussen and stuff like that.
And if they feel like a poll is like too far in one favor, like it's just too, like, like Trump's winning by 10 points. If it's a poll like that, they usually don't add those polls because they feel that for some reason the poll was affected by, like somebody, whatever, biased, or I don't know, whatever they call it.
It's an anomaly, because if it goes from 5 to 10 and then it goes back to 5, you don't count that because it's basically a polling error.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, everybody I've talked to that looks at this election data and stuff like that says 538 and RCP are the most reliable. But
they're reliable for sure. I'm not questioning their credibility.
For sure. So let's move on, because we spent a lot of time on this one. Are we seeing Michigan as a lean or a tilt in your view?
Tilt.
Lean. I'd go tilt.
Tilt.
I think tilt takes it. Tilt. It wasn't a pity one for Robert this time. So.
All right, let's check the number at the top. We're at 249 right now.
Yep.
We're at 249 for the Democrats, at 170 for the Republicans, 119 electoral votes still to go.
Calm it down, guys.
Let's do the more popular swing states first. Let's go with Ohio. How are we feeling about Ohio this time around?
Complete toss-up.
Complete toss-up. Okay.
So if we look at the history of how it votes, usually always the incumbent is going to win that. I believe that this is a good state that Pence should do a lot of the campaigning, because I don't think that Trump is really too much of a threat of losing Ohio, and Trump should work most of his campaigning in other states that it really needs. So I think that this is a good state for Pence to do a lot of the campaigning. But just like I said, for all these other states, these are the blue collared workers. I don't see Trump losing Ohio.
Do we think the comments that he made about Goodyear will have any effect on the voting turnout in Ohio?
No,
I don't really think so. I mean, when I hear Trump say stuff like that, it's kind of just, in one ear out the other. I mean, I know their stock did drop humongously, but I don't think really people pay too much attention to that kind of crap.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is interesting though. If you look at the polling, like I know this is a C+ poll rating, but Rasmussen has Biden winning by 4 points, and that's a poll that just got released today. But at least for me, the interesting thing about Ohio historically has been the fact that the last president to win the presidency without winning the state of Ohio was John F. Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
So are we going to see that trend get bucked this year?
That's one of the reasons why I say it's a complete.
I do think it's a toss-up. I think I actually, I don't know. For me, it's hard to quantify that, blue collar workers are going to be this bread and butter for Donald Trump. I don't actually think he's been that good for the working class, for blue collar workers. This is as of right now, solely my opinion. So I do think Ohio will be in play. I think it is. I think it might be a toss-up, and I think it is. There is potential there that Goodyear is a huge industry, huge player in Ohio, and when you hit it like that, it does weigh on people. So I don't think it's as close as, or I don't think it's that far into Donald Trump's camp. I would say it would be hard for me to call it anything other than a toss-up.
Yeah, I think we're kind of all there at this point, or at least I am. Like, I'm comfortable calling this the first, like, we leave it at a goal and say this is the first toss-up of the night. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna see what Robert has to say on this.
I gave it a thumbs down, but I mean, I got some pity, so.
I'll go with Robert and say it's tilting Republican.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'd be comfortable with that as well.
Okay. Let's call it that then. I think we should save toss-up for like a unanimous decision between all of us. So let's call Ohio a tilt Republican. Now, keeping with the trend of major toss-up states, Florida's next, baby. What do you think?
Florida.
Yeah,
okay.
Florida. Ooh.
Okay, so period.
Huh?
Okay.
Robert, go ahead.
What I was going to say is neither candidate has really been doing much campaigning here. I don't know if that's because Trump feels like he has good ground numbers in this state, but this is a state that Trump must win. I know Trump did just do a quick campaign there today for the first time in a while. But if we do look at the NBC poll that was released, I believe it was today, it has Hispanics favoring Trump 50% to 46%. That's up 15% from 2016. If we look at Miami-Dade, Trump is at 38% compared to Biden's 55%. That's a 17-point. But if we look at that and compare that to 2016, Trump lost Miami-Dade by 30 points to Hillary. So the Hispanic vote, whether it's the Cubans or the Latinx community, I believe that Trump is doing pretty good poll numbers there. So I think that this is I'll go with the toss-up, but I think it's a little bit more to the Republicans as of right now.
Okay. What do you think, Vlad?
It's hard for me to call it anything other than a toss-up. Actually, I would say I would call Florida even more of a toss-up than Ohio, in my opinion. I think the way that the COVID-19 crisis has been handled or mishandled in Florida is going to have a pretty big impact on the view of just the Republican Party as a whole, given their state leadership. And considering, Obama won Florida twice, we all know what happened to Al Gore in Florida in 2000. Hillary lost it, but she lost it by 1.2, which I don't think is insurmountable. So like I said, it's hard for me to call it anything other than a toss-up.
Yeah. It's interesting when you look at it. As far back as June 27th, Biden had a 73% chance of winning the state. That lead is now down to a 55% chance of winning. It's been trending towards the Republicans for about 2 to 3 months now. So it'll be interesting to see where that one is at even a month from today.
Honestly, I could see it continue getting closer. I think as the closer we get to election, the closer it's going to be to 50-50.
Yeah.
As always, that's
as it always is. Yeah. It's such a weird state.
Florida's nothing more than a toss-up, period.
Never.
Yep. I legitimately think we found our first toss-up.
Yep. Robert, can you agree with us on that one, or can you give me that?
Yeah. I already said I'll go toss-up on this one.
All right.
Yeah, I guess no. Yeah, for sure. We'll go toss-up. I 100% agree with that.
Our first toss-up of the night goes to Florida. As if nobody expected that, but
yeah.
So we'll leave it there.
Or anything if not predictable.
Yep. So I want to go to Vlad on this next one, actually.
Lord.
Georgia.
Ooh.
Georgia's been an interesting one. It's been a state that's been pretty consistently red for the last couple election cycles. this year might be different. Why is that?
You know, I legitimately think that what happened in their gubernatorial election recently with Stacey Abrams and how close that race was, I actually think that the state of Georgia is headed into that purple region. Um, Donald Trump won that state by 5 points, but before that, Mitt Romney won it by 8 or close to 8, and John McCain won it by 5.5. So you can see like there's some of that Republican lead and Republican enthusiasm, I think, in the state is kind of getting tempered down a little bit. And again, you have to take the COVID factor into consideration. And their governor in Georgia has been, in lockstep with Donald Trump, and I don't think it's done him any favors. I don't think it's done the party any favors in that state. I would, for me, it's still it is a toss up, but I think it's a state that the Democrats could win, and I think the enthusiasm for Stacey Abrams that she was able to garner in that state is going to have a huge impact in 2020.
So I'm going to be the rebuttal on this. I think Stacey Abrams lost by 58,000 votes. I don't know if I would really call that close in the gubernatorial race, but that is, if you compare it to other gubernatorial races, I guess you could say that is close. But I believe she still lost by a pretty good margin. If we do look at Georgia's history, I don't think that this is a state that Democrats are likely to win at all. I think that this is most likely a likely for me, but it will be a great state to watch as we do have both of the Senate races and we do have the presidential race as well. So this is going to be a great state to watch all around. But I don't feel that this state is really even close to going to Democrats. I would believe that this is more of a likely Republican.
And yes, you're right. She did win it by about 55,000 votes.
She lost it.
I'm sorry, she lost it by 55,000 votes. Sorry, I was alternate history where I was hoping she won. But that's also it's less than 2 percentage points. So, when you look at the numbers, if 55,000 does seem like a big number, when you look at it based on percentages, I think it was closer than people want to believe.
1.4% in Georgia for a Democratic election in a statewide vote is huge. I just don't think that Georgia's there yet. Georgia is becoming more and more purple, just like with Texas, just like with a couple of the other states we're going to talk about. But even though you have all these Hollywood people coming into Atlanta, you have a bunch of college kids in Augusta and Columbus and all these places, it's not going to happen this time. It's going to be very close, but I would say this is tilting Republican.
I would tend to agree with that. I think it's a tilt Republican as of right now. But I think Robert's going to tell us it's likely, right?
I would say lean, but if you guys want to go tilt, we don't have to agree necessarily on everything. And if you guys want to put in tilt, I'm not going to really debate it. I think Republicans have more of a chance. I
would agree with that part. Now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more.
Tilt is like, that's like a 50, like 2, right? I still think like there's not really much of a chance. Like Trump's
gonna win Georgia by 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, I'd say like 4 like 5% would at least be a lean. I looking back, I'm still trying to get these definitions right in my head, but I don't think I could go any lower than a lean. Once you're, I don't see it even going Democrat at all at this point in time.
Yeah.
Ian literally stole my point in the comments section, which I was waiting. You got to remember in a 4-year period prior to the Stacey Abrams gubernatorial election, the state of Georgia had purged over 500,000 voters in a 4-year period. There were multiple lawsuits that never got done in time. There's also a recent study that just came out, I believe, a week ago that stated that 200,000 voters were purged that should not have been purged, because it came to find out that they actually still lived at the address where they said they lived at. In addition, a lot of the issues that were had in that gubernatorial election, from closed consolidated polling places to extremely long lines, I just think that, I think that cost Stacey Abrams. And I think, I think if Georgia has the turnout, if they have extraordinary turnout, I think it's a toss-up if the turnout comes out. That's a big if, but if there's actually polling stations that are open to allow people to vote, and if there aren't any more surprise voter purges, I think Georgia can be in play. If I had to choose and stake myself to something, I'll go leans Republican.
Yeah,
It's three.
I'm with you, Jerome.
I will also just want to add something real quick. If you look at just gubernatorial races, Stacey Abrams was less under 2 points in that election. Every election before that, the Republican margin of victory has gotten significantly smaller in each cycle. So they went from, holding like I believe a 13-point margin of victory or something like that. It was large in I believe 2006 to 1.5 points in the Stacey Abrams election. So if you take that into consideration, like I think there's a shift going on in that state. So that said, probably still like tilt Republican, but could be in play. I would actually be okay with leans, but could be in play.
What do you think, Tyler?
Lean.
Lean. I think I'm going to say lean as well. So I think we'll go with the lean Republican on that one. A couple people were saying in the chat that they'd be surprised if Georgia went blue too. I kind of agree with that. So yeah, I'm going to say leans for now. So here's another one that could be a real sweated out one, is North Carolina. I think latest polls on that one are showing it as a virtual tie. Are you guys are seeing the same polls as I am, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoever wins North Carolina will win the election.
You're prepared to say that now?
I wouldn't say that.
I would say
Delivered.
I would say between North Carolina and Pennsylvania, between those two states, if whoever wins those states, or if Biden wins one of those states, how about that? If Biden wins Pennsylvania or North Carolina, which I believe for me are both complete toss-ups, if he wins one of those states, he wins the election.
I was going to say Pennsylvania. I would be with you on. I don't know about North Carolina though. I'm not sold on that one yet. Being a decider of the election though, I should say. But I mean, let's look at the latest polling data from there. Let's see.
I think
that's Pennsylvania.
Biden's polls are starting to do the downtick after the GOP convention. It's kind of the same thing you see with pretty much every state, is Biden's polls starting to go down and Trump's are starting to go up or flatline.
He got the bump.
I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing the opposite. So the bump he got was at the beginning of this month. He went up to a 54% chance of victory, and then it flipped. And now Biden's at a 52% chance of victory in North Carolina as per 538. So
North Carolina's a toss-up.
But
North Carolina's a total toss-up though.
I would characterize it as a toss-up. I'm not even going to say tilt one way or the other. I think that's a virtual tie. So
well, I think also there's a Fox News poll from September 2nd that has Biden +4.
That's still close,
but it's still it's within
Can I just
margin.
Say Fox News is an A-rated poll.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Fox News is an A-rated poll, but too close. That's too close.
Sorry, Robert.
I am very interested in the Cal Cunningham Tom Tillis Senate race.
That's going to be huge.
Is also a toss-up.
Yeah,
which is pretty much mirrors the statewide race on the presidential level.
Yep.
So we're comfortable with a toss-up. Okay, moving on to Virginia. Let's go to Kylan. What do you think about Virginia?
I'm going to say Virginia is likely. I would, in my heart, I would say safe.
Likely Democrat, right?
Yeah, likely Democrat.
Okay.
I honestly think it's safe Democrat, because Virginia has really been trending, in that direction these last couple of, election cycles. But I'll say likely Democratic, and there's no reason to believe otherwise.
Likely
Keeping in
Democratic.
mind, this is a state that I mean, I would also consider it as likely Democrat, but Hillary Clinton only won the state by about 5 points back in 2016. So
Yeah, but you got to realize that's still an increase over what Obama won it in 2012, and statewide elections, even on midterm elections and everything has been swept by Democrats.
interesting.
So I would say likely as well.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about this even going Republican. I do think some people are kind of mad about the gun reform laws that have been passed and signed by Ralph Northam, but I don't see this at all going Republican. I think a lot of these states that are around and close to Washington D.C., you know, are blue for that reason. I don't see it ever going back Republican.
Concur.
Agreed. Yeah, I think likely is the right call for that one. So another big prize for November 3rd, Pennsylvania.
You guys already got my thing on it.
Polling on this one is extremely close right now. It got as high as an 81% chance of victory for Biden back in June 28th. That lead is now shrunk to a 69% chance. What do you guys think?
Tilt blue.
I would say it's tilt blue as well,
Mm-hmm.
but and some of that is because, like we were talking about before, turnout. This is the same thing I would say with Wisconsin and Michigan. He only won the state by 0.75%. Again, this is such a close margin. It's going to come down to turnout.
Oh,
But
close. Nail
if
biter.
the turnout is there, like it has been, like we've been seeing for the last 4 years, Biden should win it, but it's so close. I would still say it's lean or tilt at this point.
I will say the lead that Biden has kind of like plateaued as of late. But it looks like, I mean, since June, it has been like, you know, very, very steadily creeping downward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks and months in that one. That's definitely a state to keep an eye on here. But as far as what to characterize it as, I would call it a tilt as of right now, just because he still has that like lead over 60%, and it's kind of plateaued and it's stayed there for a while. So I like it as a tilt state. What do you guys think?
I would disagree. I think if we look at the numbers, Republicans outnumber Democrats and registered voters. You know, the GOP registering almost 165,000 voters since the 2016 primary, where registered Democrats, I think, only registered about 30,000. That's about 135,000 voter difference. Trump has been pretty much living in Pennsylvania. This is where he's been doing almost all of his campaigning. I don't think any of those West Pennsylvania voters are going to ever go back to Biden. I think a lot of those blue collar workers are going to be voting for Trump again. This is kind of the thing that I haven't really been saying, but I do believe this is kind of my secret thing up my sleeve I got is if Biden starts to go back towards the fracking ban, I do believe that does have a big play on a lot of these states like Pennsylvania and Ohio that do have fracking basins in these areas that a lot of blue collar workers will lose jobs if Biden and Harris stay on the train of the fracking ban.
So
Biden came out against the fracking ban. He said that it wouldn't be a fracking ban.
And then he had came back, and now they're going back on the fence and talking again about a fracking ban. So they've kind of been on the fence about talking about whether they will ban fracking or they won't ban fracking. I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago he said that he wouldn't, or it was like a week ago, and then he came out again saying that he would. So I'm not saying 100% that he will, but a lot of voters will be worried about losing those jobs, you know, in Western Pennsylvania, those blue collar jobs out in Scranton in that area.
So Robert, there's a question in the Facebook comments, and I think this one was directed at you. So it's from Amanda in the comments. How do you think Trump's empty promises to the coal industry will affect this? Do you think he's strong with blue collar workers there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still better than what Biden has done with promising voters. I mean, I understand that you can't really bring back the coal industry like he had said, but it was still a lot more than what Obama was saying when he left office, that those jobs are gone. I know that the coal industry, he didn't bring back millions of jobs like he said he would, but whether it's tens of thousands of jobs compared to nothing is still jobs that people want. And at least resonates with those voters when you compare it to Biden and the Obama administration that said those jobs were gone for good.
For me, the whole entire thing with the Rust Belt is that these people just don't care at this point. They care about other things. They care about owning the liberal side, the coastal elites who've forgotten about them. And I mean, in the short-term memory loss of Americans is big in these areas in terms of, hey, the Chinese tariffs for steel were huge. They affected these areas very, very poorly. The uncertainty about NAFTA affected these people. A lot of people have lost their jobs through manufacturing to other places, and they haven't come back. So, yeah, if this was a normal candidate, it would hurt him dramatically to not have fulfilled his promises for coal and jobs for manufacturing and everything like that. But this is not a normal candidate, and I don't think that will really matter.
Yeah.
It's going to be a knockdown, drag out slugfest in the Rust Belt. Biden is going to have to campaign. He's going to need to live in the Rust Belt. He's going to have surrogates in the Rust Belt. He's going to need to run ads in the Rust Belt, online, digital, TV. He's going to have to fight. And I think he's going to do that. I think he's been doing a good job doing that. Again, I think Biden is doing a good job, and I don't think any Democrat for a long time will run a campaign as inept and dumb as Hillary Clinton's campaign. So
let's hope so.
Yeah.
I'm more of a toss-up personally, but
I would say tilt Democratic.
I'd be happy with tilt or toss-up because it's going to be close. It's going to be a drag-out fight, that's for sure.
What do you think, Vlad?
Personally, I would vote tilt, just because of I do think there was a lot of broken promises made to folks in that region. I think there were some jobs that came back, but I don't think they were in the thousands or in the tens of thousands. I have a hard time believing that folks in that region will blindly vote for President Trump when they say the coastal elites forgot about him. I think he also kind of forgot about him after the election. I think he forgot about him as well. I think it's gonna be a hell of a fight, but I would go leans or tilts Democrat.
Yep. I mean, for me, if I'm basing this on if I'm making the decision right, if the election were held today, who do I think would win the state? As of right now, I think it tilts to the Democrats. I think that could change in the next couple weeks and months, absolutely. But right now, I'm going to put that in the Democrats category and agree with you guys on that one. So, with that puts the Democrats over the 270 electoral vote threshold. Moving on, though, we got New Hampshire. How do you guys think that state goes? I think last time I checked, I think it was likely Democratic. But admittedly, I haven't done a ton of research on New Hampshire.
It's going to be closer, than like a double-digit win, but it's likely.
I think that New Hampshire is Trump's sleeper state. He's been doing quite a bit of campaigning there. I think that this is the state that Trump is really trying to upset to help his Electoral College. It is most likely something that the Democrats will win, and I would say it is a. I keep forgetting these color numbers, but I would say that this is something that is most likely going to go to Democrats. But I do believe that this is a sleeper state that Trump is trying to currently flip with his campaigning there. And so that's a sleeper pick for his fantasy draft.
Interesting way to put it. I would call it leans at this point. Honestly, I would call it lean Democrat. I think it's probably in Biden's corner, but it's a little closer than I am comfortable with at this point. Currently, 538 is calling it a 73% chance for Biden, and that stayed pretty static throughout. I think it peaked at 76% back in June. As of right now, again, it's 73. So I would say likely Democrat. I would call that one. So. Now, moving on to Maine. Now, Maine is an interesting one for a lot of reasons, but mainly because they actually split up electoral votes. I know a lot of you guys in the comments actually mentioned that earlier.
And for Nebraska.
What's
Yep.
that? Yeah, Nebraska too. Yes. So Maine has 2 districts, and then each district counts as 1 electoral vote, and then the state also counts as 2 electoral votes for whoever wins the state. So, what do you guys think about Maine's first district?
Maine's first district should go.
The first district, I think, is going Biden.
Yeah, that's totally Biden.
Yep.
That's very likely.
I think that's almost. I think it's like a safe.
Yep.
It's
the
not
first
quite
district is-
safe, but it's highly likely.
I would say likely.
I would
too.
mark it as I would mark the first district as safe.
Yep.
I think the second
Personally.
district for Trump is likely.
Wait, are we taking a vote? Is it safe or is it likely?
I'm saying
okay. Likely.
I'll go with likely.
Yeah.
Okay, we lost. Sorry.
All right, that's all right. I appreciate your support.
Yeah, I got you guys. Go Dens, dude.
Hey man, be careful. You find yourself associating with the Russian person, he might start calling you a communist.
Somebody might clip it.
Uh-oh.
District 2 is going Republican.
Not so fast. It's definitely a lead Republican right now. Trump, currently as it stands, has a 65% chance of winning Maine's second district. And that lead has only gone up since June. It got as low as a 53% chance back in June 27th. And that lead has ballooned to a 65% chance.
So,
as
Alex,
Maine's second district.
This is an area that Trump won by 10 points in 2016. I don't see it changing dramatically. Not changing enough to where it overcomes the polling errors, like we've talked about with other places. This is solidly Trump, in my opinion. So I would say likely.
What do you think, Kylan?
I'd be comfortable with either likely or leans. I think the historical trend is bearing out, and I think the numbers have gone up, increased for Trump, since the summer, and so it's trending towards Trump. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I'd be comfortable with leans or likely, but leans I'd probably say.
Yeah. I would say lean. I'd be comfortable with that. Robert and Vlad?
Yeah.
I'd probably say tilt, but I think I'm going to be outvoted by the people who want to say lean.
I was there with more of a lean. I think once you get to like 65%.
You're outvoted, Vlad. You're outvoted this time.
I believe in democracy. I'm fine with this.
And then I think we can say the state of Maine is probably safely going to Biden, right?
I would say lean.
Say lean. Okay.
I say lean.
Let's not forget about the very, very competitive Senate election between Susan
Collins
and the Maine Speaker of the House, Sarah Gideon.
Yep.
I believe last time I checked, they had her up by 3, which was in the margin of error. But this is shaping up to be one of the most expensive Senate races in history. And Susan Collins is hanging on for her dear life.
I actually have Susan Collins actually losing that one. Gideon's out polling and out fundraising Collins. She's become very unpopular within the last year of her voting cycle and stuff like that. I mean, she was very popular as more of a a moderate than being a full Republican, but over this last cycle, she's just become very unpopular. And I actually have Collins, unfortunately, losing that. And I kind of like those kind of blue dog. Well, I mean, she's a Republican, but more of those moderate kind of Republicans to kind of be in there to vote both ways. I think it's a healthy for our Congress to have that. So
interesting. So you like the Lisa Murkowski's and the Susan Collins of the world, or
and the Joe Manchins? Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the blue dog Democrats. And I mean, I think more diversity for the areas. I don't think that we should be spreading so far out, whereas we should be more coming together on issues. So I don't really have too much of a problem with the Murkowski's, Collins, and Joe Manchins.
Fair enough. I recently called Joe Manchin a dino, but that was because I was angry at him. So yeah.
Whoa. He's actually very popular in West Virginia.
Yeah,
Like,
he
he's done a
is.
lot of good for West Virginia and a lot of good for people.
And Joe Manchin was actually one of the people that was really pushing for gun control in the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting, actually.
And he won his re-election.
Yeah.
So
and that was in
That says
spite
something.
of, and that was in spite of the NRA running hit ads against him. So
let's just put it this way: the only reason why Jim Justice is the governor is because he ran as a Democrat, and then he switched parties right before the 2016 election. So
right.
it.
So
Speaking of moderates,
I think we're calling Maine as a state. We're calling it likely Dem or lean Dem right now.
I say lean.
Lean.
I say lean too, actually.
geez, I guess I should not say anything. I think it's likely, but
I would call it likely, actually.
Call it likely. Okay.
I would
Alex,
actually
you broke
call
the
it
tie.
likely.
It's lean.
I broke the tie this time, guys. There it is. All right.
gotta
And
vote
then
again.
Nebraska 2 is likely Democratic.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I
80,
think
it's like 80 or
Nebraska's
90%.
second? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 80 or
I'm pretty
90%.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's they're right on that.
Yeah, look it up at 538.
That's what I'm doing right now. Nebraska's second. Biden has a 59% chance of victory. That's far cry from likely.
I personally would
I
say
swear that
likely.
number, I thought that number was bigger.
No, it actually never. So the largest the lead got for Nebraska's second district was 64% back in June 28th. It's since gone to 59. It's kind of plateaued. And it hasn't really made dramatic shifts one way or the other recently. So I guess if you want to call it a tilt, I'd be okay with that. But
Yeah, I'd go tilt.
Yeah. So we'll call Nebraska's second a tilt, and tilt, and then I would say the rest of it is pretty solid.
Solid.
In
Yeah.
Trump's
First and
corner.
third are safe.
Yeah.
Red.
Yep. And now one thing I wanted to point out. This is why chat was yelling at you. I know, Ian. Thank you. I know chat was yelling at me earlier because I didn't differentiate those earlier, but I said I was getting to it. Okay. And I did.
Good job.
Thank you. So as it stands right now, the electoral map is 290 to 204, which of course would mean a Biden victory. But one thing that I want everyone to keep in mind here, because mail-in voting is going to be so popular this year, on November 3rd, we're actually going to see a lot of this map red, if you can
Trump's
believe
gonna
that.
win. Yeah, Trump will win the first day. Trump will win Connecticut. We'll have all these states won because all the older people who will go out and vote in person will do so, and the numbers will be coming in Trump's favor, and it could maybe not even be until January that we actually have the final results of the election.
It depends on the state, because some states count them as they come in. Some states can't count them until after the polls close.
I was watching a video on this earlier, and I think it was most states, with the exception of California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and New York. Those states were all going to go blue. Everything else on day one was going to be red. That was what they were saying. And they were saying, like, a lot of people seem to think actually that because most of these states are going to be red on November 3rd, that Trump is going to use that as an attempt to delegitimize the election in the coming days and weeks after, while votes are still being counted. And I'm curious what you guys think.
We all know that's going to happen. He's been telegraphing that for about 3 months now. He's been saying that every mail-in ballot is invalid, that it's going to be the biggest ripoff ever, that he's not going to accept the results. He's been telegraphing that for months. The post office has been crippled. So if people aren't getting their ballots in and getting them turned right back around now, their vote might not count. So my advice for everybody would be to get your ass out there and vote early, pronto, as soon as you're eligible to vote early in person.
Mm-hmm.
Request your ballots now, and if you haven't, already requested, do it. And as soon as you get it filled out and get it turned back in, either in the mail or go to your county elections board and turn it in person, or when in-person voting starts, drop your ballot off at the live polling place. But do it early, do it soon, and don't do it twice. So I would not follow the president's advice.
Don't do it twice.
But
Yeah.
there is
He will not pay your bail.
Don't do it twice, but there's definitely a difference between mail-in and absentee, and
most states are actually absentee.
Pretty much we're all
Yeah.
Absentee. I mean, mail-in is really only Oregon, Utah, Hawaii, and now this year it's California and I think New York.
I was gonna say with
But-
California now, every registered voter gets mailed a ballot, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, but
Mhm.
they get sent an application first.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what you're hearing, especially coming from the administration, is that, hey, everybody's getting a ballot. Some people that have been dead for years or they've moved away,
Yeah.
they're just making sure everybody gets an application to get a
That's the
ballot.
ballot.
I think I got my ballot, but
They
I
haven't sent
haven't,
them out
they,
yet.
they haven't sent them out yet. They're sending them out next week, I think it is.
Yep.
So nobody has a ballot yet, but we should all send those ballots in as quickly as possible.
Right.
Don't trust the post office. The post office is getting corrupted.
I think I'm going to be the argument to what Kylan had said. I do believe that this is kind of just another one of the Russia collusion attacks that we're going to see, where we think that the president isn't going to leave office if he loses the election, and I think it's just kind of used as an attack on the president to delegitimize everything that the president has done. I think it's just another way to.
Honestly,
These are the
like I
president's
think
own
regardless of whether Trump actually wants to leave office, if like he does lose the election, I think there will be enough public pressure within his administration to leave that I personally I don't think it will be an issue.
He's even said that he wants to leave office, but I mean, if we go and look at like all the fraudulent things that have happened with mail being left in California or fraud happening in all these states, I mean, it's not out of the president's reach to be questioning the validity of an election when we're sending out mass ballots to people who may be dead, or you look at people's cats and stuff like that who got ballots. So I mean, it's not out of the president's realm to question the
And
integrity
I'll
of
say,
the
I
election.
mean, we covered that in a previous podcast, but I will say that I think it could be a topic for a future podcast if we want to bring that up. But we're already at an hour and a half right now. I want to end it right there, guys. This has been Project SIP's first episode of State of the Election 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned something today. Thank you guys all for watching, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Have a great night.